Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamu alaikum everyone. I'm going to wake you up a bit for this session. I know we're straight after the break. So I'm Niaz and I'm going to be moderating this panel today. We're going to be talking about faith and finance, empowering Muslims to build wealth. The pursuit of wealth is misunderstood as being incompatible with Islam. In reality, we owe it to the contributions and wealth of our predecessors that we've been able to inherit the religion we have today. Building wealth as a Muslim is not only a responsible thing to do, but a forgotten requirement that benefits the collective. Young Muslims today are set to acquire and accumulate more wealth in the West than ever before. And with the advent of technology, stewarding the wealth we are blessed with has never been more important to prioritize. In this panel, we'll be discussing the importance of empowering Muslims to build wealth through a spiritual, worldly, and practical lens. Your wealth, how you acquire it, how you use it, and how you preserve it, is much more a part of your faith than you may realize. By the end of this panel, I hope you can take away 3 things at the very least: the role wealth building or wealth stewarding plays in Islam, how to approach your wealth building in an exponential rather than linear way, and how technology can support this, and understand the role that you all, as individuals, play in the collective financial empowerment and experience of Muslims, and the future financial landscape that we will experience. Now, to help with this, I've got an esteemed panel of speakers that I'd like to introduce to you. So to my right, I've got Shahid Munir, who is the founder of Trust XPay and Minted Edge. Shahid is a serial entrepreneur and angel investor, so if you're looking for some money, he's a good guy to chat to. He founded a cloud-based SaaS business in the telecom sector, which he exited in 2017. In 2018, he founded Minted, a fintech platform which allows people to easily invest into gold and silver. He has since launched Minted Edge, and most recently Trust XPay, which is a digital payments platform which went live within 6 months in the Middle East. Shahid has a wealth of experience in business and tech we can all learn from. Next, we have Amr Baroudi, who is co-founder and CEO of Nsave. Amr is an award-winning international entrepreneur. He has founded several successful ventures in the fields of technology and business. Most recently, Amr co-founded Nsave, an innovative fintech platform which enables people from unstable economies to open offshore accounts. Amr is Syrian-born and co-founded Nsave with his Palestinian co-founder, Abdullah. I think he's somewhere in the room as well. Both founders know personally how catastrophic the impact of destabilization at home can be. Nsave went live 8 weeks ago, and we can't wait to hear more about it. And finally, we have Yasmin Al-Mahiri, who is co-founder of Dija Money. Yasmin is a seasoned entrepreneur who is onto her 3rd venture, impressively. Yasmin's first business, Supermama, was an online media company in the parenting space, which reached over 6 million mothers monthly. It's pretty impressive. She successfully exited this company in 2019. She is currently building Dija Money, which is a fintech platform dedicated to empowering Muslim women financially. And Yasmin is a thought leader within this space and no doubt has immense value and insights to share with us today. And I'm not just an imposter, I'm co-founder of a brand called Millennial Money, which is an online community centered around the financial and social experiences of young people. Tayyib, bismillah, let's get started. So the opening question for the panel, and Shahid, as you're closest to me, I'll start with you if you don't mind, is do you believe it's wrong to be rich in Islam?
Wow, no, absolutely not. I think what money does, it really elevates, I believe, the person that you already are. So I believe if you're a good person with good values, the wealthier you become, you'll utilize that money towards good things and making positive change in the world. And I know if we go back to the times of our Prophet ﷺ, we, a lot of the people that surrounded the Prophet, the Sahabas, were extremely wealthy. And it was one of the reasons why they could initiate some of the awareness of Islam at the time. So yeah, absolutely not. I think being wealthy and striving towards wealth in line with our principles, it's the best thing that you can do for your religion.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as you mentioned, at the time of the Sahaba as well, the Ashara Mubashirin, there were 10 of those who were promised paradise, and 5 of them were actually, in today's terms, either predicted to be 100 millionaires or billionaires by today's standards. And obviously, because of their contributions, we benefit from it today. Amr, same question to you.
I mean, I can't add anything more, but it's really about how will you use these resources at the end of the day? Are you using them for good and to empower others, or for other means? It's definitely like any kind of resource that we should all strive to have. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yasmin, you.
I see it from a very different perspective.
I think the one thing that maybe I'll added to what you gentlemen just said, is that, again, wealth is power and influence, and together we can use this to influence more and build more wealth. So think of it, one Muslim builds a startup grows, startup exits, invests in a few smaller startups, those grow and exit. Can you think of the compounding effect that happens? Can you think of how many successful startups we have in our ummah? Can you think of how much we can do together by just one person taking one initiative, let alone 1,000 people in the room? So on the contrary, I think wealth is a must. It's not just not haram or not wrong.
Absolutely, and I think as Muslims we're actually taught to seek knowledge, and I think people mistake that as just Islamic knowledge, but we're meant to be worldly and seek all kinds of knowledge. Yeah, just to stick with you, Yasmin, there's a quote that I took from Morgan Housel's book, many of you may have read it, called The Psychology of Money, highly recommend it, and he talks about financial success is not a hard science, it's actually a soft skill, where how you behave is much more important than what you know. A lot of people tend to feel quite disqualified when it comes to the conversation of money, because they think, oh my God, I don't understand these terms, I don't understand what's going on, there's a lot of jargon here. But actually, money and how good you are with money is much more about your behavior. And behavior is something that we can control. And if we look at it from a Dini perspective as well, we have to be really intentional about our behavior. But Yasmin, is there any advice that you would give to someone who just decided maybe they want to start to get a hold of their finances?
Well, I'll tell you the things that I'm telling myself. So I'm not a finance professional at all, and I'm building a fintech. So, and the purpose of that is to enable knowledge to everyone, or to give access to knowledge to everyone. But there are a few key tricks that I personally learned maybe at an older age, or the hard way, which is, first of all, be comfortable talking to others. I don't know why we tend to want to hide conversations about wealth, either because we don't understand or because we're fearing hasad or whatever it is. So what ends up happening is that because we don't have the conversations, we're not invited to the table, so we don't know what goes there, so we miss out on opportunities. And I feel this is a thing that we really need to get over. I believe communities help us a lot, so finding a few trustworthy people to talk to helps. I believe that definitely discipline helps. So when you're like, if you have something happening, something going out of your direct debit on monthly basis with your salary, even if it's tiny, it really makes a difference. I believe niyyah and dua definitely help. And I finally believe don't take big risks all at once. Like when you start investing, don't start in high risk things and go and say, oh, I believe in my friend's startup. Startup are the highest risk. I mean, yes, we startups want the money, but is this the right thing to do? So start by something smaller, more safe. You know, once you get more comfortable, start digging into bigger things or more riskier versions. And just talk to others. I think that's the key.
I think that's a really good point. I think we have a generationally unique experience of our financial experiences. I know in conversations that we've had in the past, we can't necessarily benefit completely from the advice of our mentors or our parents, because they had a very different financial landscape, right? My dad would just tell me, just buy a house, man. Like, that's it. That's literally his advice, and he's still getting on to me because I haven't bought one. But I think the best way for us to learn is peer-to-peer. That's kind of like how our platform built, because it was learning from people who have the same experiences as you. Another thing, I think I joked with you, Shahid, about getting good with money is you just leave Dubai, so it doesn't. It gets you to stop spending your money. But one thing that I think is important to touch on, and which I said in the introduction, is linear thinking when it comes to money or anything is much more intuitive than exponential thinking. But wealth is actually built exponentially, and I'll explain that a little bit. And most people in this room can probably relate. I think we find ourselves, and alhamdulillah, everyone here is very, very successful, very ambitious, and we find ourselves chasing high incomes. Now, that's what I mean by linear thinking. Oh, when I get a six-figure income, I'm going to be okay. I'll be rich. I'm fine. But you sort of associate a level of wealth to a six-figure income or more, but then you have to keep earning that income to then have this wealthy lifestyle. Whereas exponential thinking, it has two key ingredients, which is you have time, firstly, which allows you to benefit from compounding returns. So they're two secret ingredients. And actually, when it comes to building wealth, it's done over years and decades, and sometimes lifetimes, because a lot of wealth is actually inherited. I think I joked to the three panelists earlier that those of us, and alhamdulillah, we may be doing well, at best, as a Muslim community in the West, we're all new money, and it comes with new money behaviors, and we actually have to step away and start thinking exponentially and longer term. But a question for the panel is, what are the best wealth building behaviors that you might recommend for Muslim? Aman, should I start with you?
I'm definitely not the right person to advise on on that. For me, and to be honest, I find myself struggling with the question in general about building wealth. I've never thought about the idea of I want to build wealth. What always frustrated me is my community didn't have access to the tools in case they wanted to build wealth, and that's what I deeply cared about, and that's what we're trying to do with what we're building. But it's really about that access piece of wealth. Yeah, but I don't know, maybe Shahid or Yasmin.
I think, we always strive to want to earn as much as possible in the shortest amount of time. And I think that's probably led by our influences that we see around us. But I think we go back to slow and steady. And slow and steady really goes back to the age-old assets that have always proven to work. So I think that's a good place to start. And I think you touched upon jargon earlier. So a lot of the jargon is created by financial experts and people in the industry who, because if they don't have jargon, you can't, they can't charge you for advice to tell you what that jargon means. So when we really actually bring it back to basics, assets is always a great place to start, because if you own an asset, it's yours, it's physical, and assets generally all increase in value, unless you buy tulips. Yeah, that didn't go too well. But no, we're entering a digital age as well now, where a lot of digital assets are up and coming as well, and it's a scary place for some because not a lot of people understand them. But again, I feel like they have the same traits and qualities of being a slow and steady asset. That anything that you can sell and turn back into cash is something that I feel safe that you can put your money into.
Yeah, and Yasmin, I just wanted to, because you're building a platform for Muslim women as well, specifically. What kind of wealth building behaviors or what kind of things would you recommend when you're speaking to your cohort?
I think I would definitely agree on the slow and steady. I would definitely agree on the power of the superpowers of direct debit things happening, while you sleep, And I think the misconception of you have to be rich to build wealth or to invest or to make money, like the only weapon against that is start small and get it as a muscle, work it out, grow it. I think there's a lot to be said about your perception, and I think this is where I personally started from. I read a book a few years back called The 100-Year Life, where the premise is that we're going to live to be 100 years old. And in my head, if I'm going to retire at 65, God forbid, I'm hoping to retire in my 50s, but say 65 and living to be 100, that's 35 years. And that's the age where you can't really learn new skills, right? And you can't do physical labor, and your health cost has increased, and your pension is just not doing that. So you really need to have something working for you. how do we get there? And I think this is what planted it in my head that we need to do something about it. Whether you're single, so you're building for yourself, or to take care of yourself when you're older, or you have a family, so you have to take care of them and of yourself when you're older. I think just the perception, just seeing the value of compounded things, because your problems are going to get exponentially growing as well, not just your income or your savings. So I think it's a matter of perception. Once you see it, I think you can't unsee it. And I think this puts you on the straight line to, I need to do something about it. And then is why you start learning and investing in assets and starting small and talking to others and doing a lot of dua, because that's our secret power, right? We know that if you pray for God, that's really what gets things going.
I mentioned as well, and I guess kind of in jest earlier, about some of the financial trappings that we experience in our community as a whole, as Muslims, being new money in the West. And people often talk about things like, obviously people joke about things like mahar and the competition when it comes to mahar, and then there's weddings, and there's a lot of peer pressure in society. Would you give any advice on Muslims to sort of stay away from the financial trappings that could be wealth diminishing? Are there any that you'd look out for? Or, alternatively, is there any that you would say that you've fallen into the trap of?
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, many. I think there's this general thing about keeping up with the Jones, and I think that is a trap that we all fall into at some point of our life. Some people get it out their system early, which is probably the best thing to do. But it does, and I think it probably does come down to that concept of new money. It's experiencing something that you've never had before, or an experience that you've never had before. So you end up spending money. And it's not a bad thing. It's not all bad, because they do lead to positive experiences as well. But yeah, no, I think having, I think using it for your, sorry, I lost my train of thought. But I think like putting your wealth towards something that's meaningful. It comes with responsibility as well. So when you don't really have much responsibility, you don't really think too much about building wealth. But one thing I would say is, we were taught as well, and like my parents, we've been taught down that, having cash was like a safety, keeping cash was a safety. And that's no longer the case. Yasmin touched upon a point, which was keep it working for you. So your money has to be working for you, and it's sitting in the bank. It's not working for you. It's working for the bank, and it's making them money. So even if it's in property or stable real assets, is a lot better than just having hard cash just sitting in the account.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. And just quick show of hands, does anyone in this room invest in any assets of any kind? Amazing. It looks like about a 50-50. And I think there is, usually people do revert to cash as like the safe, secure, I know what it's doing. So it's good to get that view. But I think investing has become this scary concept, or building or owning assets as a whole. Because obviously it's not the only way to own assets. You can also build assets rather than invest in the money that you may have. The other thing that I wanted to touch on, a key benefit that we have as an ummah is that we are a global community. And by its very nature, we are a people without borders. And that is something that we should appreciate. But also, it's also why we can see the sentiment in the room, which is why a lot of us are feeling a lot of pain as well because of what's going on. But how can we use this global community to our benefit? How do you think this concept of the ummah and people without borders can translate into wealth building, commerce and trade? Amr, maybe I'll start with you.
I mean, absolutely. I think one piece that me and Abdullah in particular, my co-founder, we felt like, given that we have access to resources and we have access to stable economies, how can we support those who are, less fortunate, who are still back there, and how we can maybe use technology and use, our network and people to be able to go and solve serious problems. That one piece resonates a lot. For us, just as background, I grew up in Syria. I struggled to get a bank account for about 10 years until I managed to arrive in the UK and then figured out. Abdullah, my co-founder, is from Gaza, so he also resonated with that. Now, we've been working tirelessly for months. Starting Monday, we'll be able to bank Palestinians who got displaced now, for example, in Egypt, which is how we can, leverage. And we couldn't have been able to do that if we didn't have the resources here, if we didn't have an amazing network of people who are supporting us as well. I think that's really key. And to be honest, that's what I feel is the real wealth that we have. Not necessarily in terms of monetary wealth, but it's actually the energy and the time that we can spend to support each other, which I truly, truly value and care about.
Absolutely, I think that's a really good point. Cool. Shahid, I wanted to come to you because you bought the domain recently, ummah.com, and how are you planning on using it?
Oh yes, I haven't thought that far ahead yet. But no, again, like I got an excellent opportunity to acquire that domain name. I just feel like there has to be more education that relates to people, the Gen Z millennials, I feel, who can sometimes be alienated from, in particular, Islamic knowledge and the resources that are currently available online. May not be to tune with them. So it's to be used for that. It's to provide Muslims for a voice, and then technology. We're referring to, we're a global people, and we live in the tech age, and we're at Tech Fest. Technology is the way to enable. If we can leverage technology, I feel like we can build solutions that can help, Muslims globally.
Absolutely. And Yasmin, I guess to touch on that point, what role do you think technology can play in helping Muslims as a whole in building wealth?
I always look at technology as an enabler, not as a purpose. So let's think of all the things that technology can help us do. It can help us seek inspiration and inspire others, right? It can help us learn from others that are doing things either the Islamic way or the conventional way, and then find the way to do it the right way, right? It can definitely help us learn more. It gives us access to things. It helps us democratize things. So like Shahid said, people used to use jargon so that we can't access wealth, right? It used to be there to stop us. It used to be things are behind the gate. But now, put any word you want on Google, right? You'll find the meaning. And you'll probably find an expert. And because I believe in the 6 degrees of separation theory, you will find a connection to that expert through 6 people. So you can reach anyone through LinkedIn, through Muslim Tech Fest. So I think technology gave us no excuse to go out of our way and do something.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point. And I just want to sort of look to the room and say, if I was to tell you all that I personally have an insight and I know what the greatest investment of all time is, and I'll tell you that secret. I actually do, by the way. But would you think you probably think I was trying to scam you, right? But wallahi, we all know the greatest secret when it comes to the greatest investment that you can make. As Muslims, we've been given this knowledge from the outset, and it's repeated multiple times in Hadith and the Quran, and that is sadaqah, which is the greatest investment with a guaranteed return in this dunya and in the akhirah. And I think it plays out so much in a hadith, in the seerah, and actually in all of our personal lives as well. There's so many experiences that I reckon if I was to ask all of you in the room, you probably have an experience where you gave sadaqah and you got that return to you multiplied in a way that you probably didn't anticipate. And it isn't actually limited to our community either. I was actually speaking to some Jewish colleagues at work, and they also call it sadaqah, but they spell it T-Z-E-K. So it's a Hebrew word as well, and it's an application that they make into their wealth building. And then taking away the spiritual aspect of it, I was researching and I saw some videos of people who don't have any faith, and there was a guy who interviewed around 100 centimillionaires, and he wanted to find out what is it that they did that made them so wealthy. And bar none, he said a common thread was that he found that all of these people gave significantly in charity. There's a psychological element to that as well. If you're able to give freely, you come from a place of abundance. And from us, we know that it comes from a place of tawakkul as well, to be in a position that you're able to give. So yeah, no scamming here. Sadaqah is the greatest investment that you'll ever make. But I just wanted to touch on that slowly with each of you. What role does sadaqah play in your life? or in your wealth and venture building journey? Amr, I'll start.
Not the conventional give money sadaqah. I think early on, especially during the most difficult times after the war, the help and the knowledge, when someone gave me a lot of their time and mentorship and guidance and pointed me towards what I should learn, that has been the best sadaqah I've received, I think. And I think anyone in the room could actually do the same towards someone, at least, even if we don't have that, financial capability to that. In retrospective now, has been the most wonderful sadaqah I've received, I think.
And Shahid, would you?
Yeah, I think I second what Amr said. I think my involvement with sadaqah has been, not the most impact for me has not been when I've given financially. So I'll tell a quick story. Around a year ago, so I'm from Birmingham originally, and I got to a point in life where I felt like my brain stopped working, and I couldn't innovate anymore, and I wasn't, who I used to be in my businesses, and I couldn't really concentrate. So I packed up and I left, and I moved to the UAE. And after the first couple of weeks, I just came across a gentleman who was running a Muslim charity. And we just got talking, and through just by talking to him, he asked me what I do, and all of a sudden I'm involved in this huge digital transformation project for the charity, and I've been fully engrossed in that ever since. And I don't know if I know there's some people here from charity, but trying to implement change inside charities is not the easiest thing to do. But it was just so fulfilling. So for me, that became my sadaqah. I was just working on it. And the net benefit of that is, I probably devoted, I'd say, 80 to 90% of my time towards the charity, and I was just fully engrossed. But, a year later, I look back and I see, 3 of my ventures almost tripled in size, without even having any of my focus. It just happened. Well, not why, because I feel the blessings of the work that was happening on the other side. So I've definitely truly felt it myself.
Alhamdulillah, long may it continue. Yasmin?
So I think I'm going to the more monetary side in my story. I was always told as a child that when you're stuck, especially stuck in money, you give, and then Allah gives you barakah, right? So when we were selling Super Mama, there was one exit prior to the one that we had, and that failed miserably. It would have been more lucrative, and that's a very painful story to tell. But so when we were discussing the next deal, I made another, God, if inshallah ya Rab, if that works out, I'm giving X% of whatever comes to the needy. And two specific areas are very close to my heart: education and health. Because really, if you can't learn, then you can't improve, and if you're in pain, then you can't do anything. And then when alhamdulillah it materialized, and I took the money on the side, and I started researching where to deploy basically the amount that I wanted. It was a heartbreaking moment seeing the amount of cases in need. How do you choose whether you fund a child to learn for a year, to go to school for a year, or for someone who had a heart failure to find some synthetic heart or something? How do you choose? And I think I obviously went above and beyond, as we all should, but I think it put me in the mindset is, how do we make more money in order to give more, in order to get more barakah? And I think this whole concept of a circular barakah economy I think it consumes me. So it makes me want to give more. So I need to work more. And I think that's why we build wealth, isn't it?
Absolutely, alhamdulillah. And I think that's, there's examples of that as well, of the Sahaba that used to complain that, it's unfair, we're not rich, so we're not able to give. And actually that giving is so much a part of our identity as well. So alhamdulillah, thank you for sharing that. We're in a room full of tech enthusiasts. And one thing that I wanted to talk about is the financial landscape that we currently have. If we're to reflect on it properly, a lot of our banking and financial system is actually full of Sharia compliant stopgaps, right? And it was actually probably designed for a generation before us with less resources. And the idea was that a lot of these stopgaps get taken away when a new generation comes up with more opportunities, us being the beneficiaries of that generation, to recreate the new financial landscape. I'm sat with 3 very successful tech founders and plenty of tech enthusiasts in the room, some brilliant minds. What advice would you give the people in the room to encourage everyone to engage in this process of building the new world that can benefit?
Don't be a founder. Unless you really care about the problem you're solving and you're gonna live through the pain of being a founder, I would say think about it before doing it. I don't know, do you agree, Yasmin?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like the first advice is don't do it. But then if you really, really, really need to do it, pick something that makes you really can't sleep at night. And I think the second bit of advice is it's a very lonely journey. So pick a good co-founder and surround yourself with amazing people like yourselves. Because it gets very hard and very, and this is coming from someone who's doing it for the 3rd time. So I really know what I'm talking about.
I would actually say don't be scared to try.
Okay.
I think now we're living in an age where it doesn't cost much to trial and test an idea. So I feel like, it's an aspiration that many people have, but sometimes, it's the daunting task of, what do I do? Where do I go to? How much is it going to cost? Am I going to lose my money if I invest into this idea and it doesn't work? And traditionally, that may have been the case because to test your idea and get it out in the market, you'd have to do a business plan and go and spend on advertising and so on and so forth. But we're living in an age now where we have social media that's almost free to test your concepts. We have cheap online resources that will do graphics design for you or build you a website for next to nothing. We even have AI tools now that will do a lot of that for you. So I feel like now you can validate your idea a lot cheaper and a lot quicker as opposed to what you could before. So yeah, don't be scared to try.
So mixed messaging there, but don't be scared to try. Be brave, as Saj said earlier. But you might lose many nights of sleep over it, so balance. They've warned you. I wanted to give you a quote from Dr. Ma'in al-Quda, who is an American Islamic scholar who's a specialist in Islamic finance. And he says that, and I hope that you're empowered by this, everyone in this room, I'm actually speaking to all of you by when I quote this, is I wholeheartedly believe the Muslim community in the West does have enough financial, academic, and human resources that can establish our own financial system. In the same way we have a lot of challenges, we have a lot of opportunities. What we are lacking is a vision, and we are lacking leadership. Events like Muslim Tech Fest and all of the innovative businesses and founders and brilliant minds that we have here are an example and manifestation of that vision for us to step up and create a new world. Not just ask for a seat at the table, as Arfa said earlier, but to create new tables entirely. So we are the children of parents who made great sacrifices with limited resources and opportunities. It's our duty now, all of us in this room, to innovate and create the future landscape and financial opportunities that the community can benefit from going forwards. So may Allah grant all of you tawfiq in all that you do. Thank you for your contributions to our wonderful panelists, and Jazakallah khair for listening to us today. Thank you.